welcome everybody to this tutorial here today. We are talking about how we are able to track Capex and Opex activities with Tempo Timesheets for JIRA Server and JIRA Cloud. My name here today on the line is Alexander Eck, and I'm working as a senior product expert at Tempo. To start with, I'm going to tell you something about Capex or Tempo Timesheets and about CapexOpex in general and how it works with accounts, and which is basically the key functionality of Tempo Timesheets in order to be able to track those activities. And we will look also, of course, into how we basically are able to generate reports to be able to report on those activities. So Tempo Timesheets has, of course, to offer some key functionality and some benefits for you. So first of all, Tempo Timesheets is a painless time tracking tool. So it is very easy for you to track your time. So this is the key functionality of Tempo Timesheets. And it also has to offer a timesheet approval process for team leads. And this is what we're going to cover here today is it supports the Capex Opex reporting possibility with Tempo accounts. So, and I will jump in directly into what Capex and Opex activities are in general. So even though if that is very often use these terms from financial people, but I still think that you maybe or not maybe into too details of what that basically means and how you can benefit from it. So even though if you are not a financial officer per se, you maybe can spread the good word of Tempo and tell your people what Tempo has to offer for those options. So, for example, so in very short, Capex stands for capitalized expenses and Opex for operational expenses. So, why is that so important? It is so important because capitalized expenses are basically or can be in many countries can be reduced from taxes. So many of our customers use these reports for their tax reports in order to be able to reduce that amount of time that have spent on capitalized efforts or capitalized products in order to reduce that amount from their reports. But nevertheless, if you are able to track or if you are setting up your system in order to show those categories, it will also tell you a story about how your organization has spent its efforts towards the different categories. So I will come, of course, into Tempo accounts in several minutes when I look into my system or into my JIRA setup in general. But maybe one slide that a little bit explains the setup of Tempo accounts, and it does not really tell the whole story, but it gives you maybe an idea. What we basically do is we set up a lot of accounts, and these accounts can have can be in many different categories. So they can be billable or can be within the service contract or can be for internal use, like to develop some kind of products, or can be used for initiatives, for example, that are long-term and can be used then for capitalized reduction from your tax reports. But we will come into that a little bit in a minute when I look into my JIRA instance. And when I talk about my JIRA instance, and this is what I'm going to jump into right now, I have mentioned in the very beginning that this is both for JIRA Server and JIRA Cloud. But today I'm going to present that everything within my JIRA for Server instance, and I promised you that it's going to work same way or in a very similar way on JIRA Cloud as well. But of course, the navigation or some other stuff might behave a little bit differently between server and cloud, but you can find all the same functionality that I'm going to show you today. You find that also in JIRA Cloud. It might be in some different locations, but it is basically available both on JIRA Server and JIRA Cloud. So what we're going to do is we jump into the accounts, and this is where we're going to start because we need accounts to be able to track our CapEx and OpEx activities. What we do, and of course you can also use accounts not only for CapEx to track CapEx and OpEx activities, but you can also use that to track, for example, service contracts, or you can also use that in order to bill your customer. We have a very specific report for that as well, which we call the time and expense report. So if you're also keen on how that looks like, I can also show that to you later on if you're interested. But we are now here in order to discuss CapEx and OpEx activities, and this is what I'm going to show you very general. So, for example, like I said, we have a lot of accounts here, but I'm going to look into 2 accounts here that we have, and you might, for example, see here that I have 2 specific accounts for the JIRA Cloud, for example, the Capex and the Opex account. So what I'm going to do is I use these accounts in order to specify really what kind of work I'm tracking my efforts against. And we are open up, for example, the Capex account, and we will look into that into the setup. So the setup is quite basic, but I will also show you what effect that has and what you need to have in what you need to consider in order to make that work. So first of all, we have, of course, here the account name. That's very for sure. We and then we can give that also key. So the key is very much also used if you have a reference, for example, to a financial system where you have a cost center key or whatever what you can use in order to refer to. That's what many of our customers do. And then we can also specify the customer. So a customer might be not typically what we are using when we use CapEx and OpEx activities, because those activities are very much for internal use only. So you would not have an external customer per se, because CapEx and OpEx activity mostly refer to internal usage and for efforts that you spend basically on your own efforts, like operational efforts or efforts that you are going to spend to develop something new and to gain some revenue in the future from. Okay, but customer can in this case also be, for example, internal departments, for example. So if you use that as a customer, you can use that field here in order to specify your internal departments here as a customer if you wish to do so. So then we have a category here, and I will also jump to where categories are basically set up. So categories can be a lot of, so you can set those up specifically, and we are going to jump into in a minute. And in this case, for example, I have an account which is related to development category. So that basically makes sense. So everything which is development for future revenue belongs to very often to Capex account, and this is what I'm going to do here. But you might also have, as you probably see from my setup, some billable accounts if you also want to use that account setup to bill your customer, or for example to check on service contracts, how you're going along with your service contracts, and or service and maintenance, for example. Service and maintenance, this is, for example, very much used for Opex activities. So because Opex operational, so service and maintenance, or specifically maintenance, is a typical Opex activity. So that would also help you, for example, and we will see that in the report later on, to report on those categories specifically when we are looking into reports. And then also have sick time and vacation. These are, of course, internal ones, but you would, of course, also would like to know in regards of a utilization report, for example, how much time you have spent on internal activities versus billable or operational or capitalized efforts. Here we have status. So from the status menu, you see that we have different options available. So we have accounts can be open, closed, or archived. That also helps you in order to tell and for example that you are not able to or close or archived accounts. Basically prevent people from logging time against those accounts. So we also have an account lead. Account lead is a person who is able to configure this account here. And here on the top right is one very important thing, that is the links to projects. And this is how we do that. And because what we are going to do and what we want to do is basically to track our capitalized efforts through all JIRA projects that I'm running. So or across all JIRA projects that I'm running. And this is the beauty of Tempo Accounts, because by using that, the Tempo account object, you will basically able to report on those objects and across all JIRA projects. So what I do here is I'm linking my account to a JIRA project. I can also, of course, use another one if I would like to do so. And by doing that, and I will show you a little bit later after I have finished the setup of the account, I will show you how this affects your issue creation or how you create issues. So, but before I jump into that, I would like to finish the setup of accounts by looking into how we set up the account categories. So we have seen here the categories, but the categories are set up in a different place, and I want to go there. So from the Tempo settings menu here, you see, which is for Tempo administrators, you see a lot of options here on the left-hand side. And one option is if you go here down to the left, you see the account section. And from here, you have account categories. Okay, so here you see all those categories that you have created, and you can of course create new ones if you like to do so. But, and this is what is very important here, we are going to select the type. Okay, so we have these pre-configured types. They are not changeable, and you cannot you are not able to add any types there or amend those. So these are fixed ones, and there's a good reason for why they are only these fixed ones. So, but if you want to have a category, more than one category into one type, you can of course create those. Okay, so, and we will see basically from here that we have only one capitalized category, which is development, but we have several operational ones like management costs, sales and marketing, and service and maintenance, for example. Okay, so, and this is how it works. And we will also notice or just have that as a reminder here that we use both the categories and the type also in our reporting tool or that we have, and we can also look into later on to filter on those issues within our instance that are linked to those account categories or types. And this brings me to the next point, and you will probably ask yourself or me how you can basically link your issues to an account, and this is what I'm going to do now. Okay, so I just open up a new instance, have some more tabs here open. So when we go, for example, to the issue view here, so we search for issues. And we have, of course, a lot of issues here. But what I'm going to do here is what we're going to do, of course, now we are creating an issue. Okay, so, and we are referring to one of those accounts that we have been looking into a couple of minutes ago. And we remember probably that we have set up an account which is linked to a project with JIRA Cloud. And what we're going to do, or what you need to do in order to make that all work, is to add the Tempo account field, which is shipped out of the JIRA custom field and added to your JIRA issue screens. So this is what I've done here. You see, of course, you can add a summary. Just say, I don't know what's design work. Let's say so. And I will say the design work falls into the capitalized category. So now what you basically see from here is you will only be able to select those accounts that are available or that are linked to that project that I'm going to create my issue against. So when I, for example, choose another project, you will see that the account field gets wiped out that I have selected earlier. So, for example, in this case, I only have one linked account, which makes it pre-selected. Okay, if you have more than one account, you will need to choose your account that you need to select, and that's what I'm going to do. So I see here Capex account, and I simply create that issue. So this is how it works. So what you need to do is, of course, you need to link to issue to your account. So that's very important. So, and once we have an account linked to an issue, we also remember very slightly that I have different objects assigned to different topics assigned to my account, like the category and like the category type. And this is what I can use once I'm here. I will just like to finish that. I can use that within my JQuery or within the JQuery functions with ship with Tempo. So for example, and this is what I always need to do here is there's a page here, so which is referring to the accounts JQL functions, and there are several ones. So you could basically, of course, use the account field per se. So if you want to look into all the issues that are linked to a specific account, you can use that. But what we might also be interested in is looking into, for example, accounts by category type. So I could very easily copy that. So I don't want to say internal. I want to get all my capitalized issues, for example. And this will bring up all those issues that are linked to an account which is of the type capitalized. So this is, of course, one type of not only reporting, but also to see what issues are in the pipeline to be capitalized, which are on the making. So you can use that also as a search tool in order to filter on issues across all your JIRA projects. Okay, so finally, of course, we go into the option how we are reporting on those activities in Tempo. Therefore, I choose my Tempo drop-down menu here, and I'm not going to accounts or teams, but now I'm going into reports, and this is where I'm going to start. And from the report section, this might, of course, look a little bit different from depending on the version that you're running or if you're JIRA server on cloud. But you will basically see two main options, the log time report and the plan time report. And I want to I'm going to create a report from scratch, and this is what I'm going to do. But you will also notice here, for example, below we have a section for saved reports, and this is what we are going to do a little bit later in order to really easily find those reports that I am looking for, that I need, and that I have set up or pre-configured, so I don't need to do that all the time from scratch. But I will start here by creating a log time report, clicking on the create a log time report, and I'm going to filter on, so I have different options to filter from. So of course I can choose project themes, but we are of course very much interested in those activities that we have been looking into, and these are the Capex activities, for example. We have gone through the account setup, so therefore we are very much interested in filtering by accounts and all entities related to accounts, like account categories or the category types. There should be, of course, saying account category types, which is maybe a too long name, but the category types relates to the counts that we set up. So we will, for example, do that. And as we probably remember, we have these 4 pre-configured category types. And if I would like, for example, create a report on my capitalized efforts, I can do that from here. And I just go back, okay? And just go back and I just say group by account. However, whatever I pick here now, I am also able to change or to amend that change later on. So now we have a report, and the report is, so we see now here on the top left, we see a section for the date picker. So I have pre-selected my current month, which is January 2020. But of course, I can also extend the date range, of course, and I'm going to select, for example, Q4 2019. Honest to say, I was not very ambitious in tracking my time in 2020, so I only have time for 2019. Here I have a report for Q4 on all my capitalized issues. So now what Tempo is doing is selecting or pulling in all issues or all worklogs that are linked to those accounts that are linked to a capitalized category type. Okay, so we see, for example, here the game app development, the Tango Capex, the Tango to mobile, or what we have been using earlier is the JIRA Cloud Capex or the Salesforce connector, for example. So these are typical projects, for example, for development. It's very usual that you have accounts like this in your capital or as your capitalized category. Okay, so I'm going to, and this is what we see here by filter by. And so basically I have report or created my report by capitalized issues. So this really helps me to see how much time I have spent on my capitalized issue. So now we will probably see that it is grouped by default by account. You would also maybe would like to, for example, add another level onto it or into that, for example, project. So I see, for example, how that looks like for my project. So basically here, then you will see that for that, now I have an account and then the project per se. And so you can also break it a little bit more down as you would like to see so. Beside the grouping by options, I also have here on the right-hand side, you see, for example, the list view. So we are able to look into that. So we could, for example, also change that to a grid view. And from a grid view, I might have different options as available from here also. So let's say, for example, I have report, which is report on a quarter base, which is of course fine. But let's say I want to look into how my time has spent throughout my month. So I can, for example, use the grid view here in order to select by month. And then you will basically see how the time spent has been distributed between my months. And you can probably guess and see that there has not been much time tracking being taking place in November and December 2019. And again, when I switch to list view, for example, what I just want to show you maybe from here, you're also able to add, for example, the user tab here if you want to see who has spent time on those, for example. But you can of course then basically see how much users have spent their time on specific account activities. And something that we might also want to add to here is, for example, so let's say we have just only filtered, for example, for one category type. I could also here now add the operational category on top of it. So this will basically tell me, for example, or will pull in both in that specific report, both activities which are capitalized and operational. But another beauty of that is, of course, there are two further options that I want to show you. One, for example, would be, I'm checking it here. One option is very much the possibility to save that report. So I could here say, for example, I could save that report, making it capitalized, let's say, capitalized activities, let's say Q4 2019, and save that as a report. So this is, for example, one option. And another thing that I want to mention is here is also the export option. So you can also, if you want to report onto even more details, you can also and use an CSV or CSV export or XLS import in order to generate a report. To process further, you can use those options here to export the data, and the export option also includes even more issue details than we see here. So if you want to, for example, to create further reports based on other JIRA custom fields, for example, you can use that by using the export option. So now when I have saved that report and I get back to the report overview section, you will basically see now here that this report that I just created is available here as an option. So I can always go in there later on to get that report. So I just set it up once, and of course now it's for Q4. So I could also, for example, now change the time period here to make it fit to Q1, and then I could simply do it or change that name here and make it like, for example, Q1 2020, for example. Okay, so now of course the data that is represented in the report has been changed according to the time period that I have selected here. That of course doesn't make any sense. Should be of course the end of March probably. Okay, doesn't matter. I have saved it. And now when we go back to the report section, we both see a report for Q4 2019 and one for Q1 2020. So just a very little recap. It is very much about accounts, as you probably see. So what we, of course, and you might, of course, have other ways in order to report on CapexOpex activities in your organization, but with Tempo accounts, it is made very, very easy. And this is what many of our customers do. Maybe one little thing that I forgot to mention, and which might be a little bit tricky, is the option. So we have, or I have shown you the way and how you add the account to your issues, and this is the preferred way on doing that. But there's also the option that you move or that you copy that account field into your work log. So for example, when you're logging your time, we also could have an option, and then of course you select your issues here. You're tracking your time on a specific day, you specify how much time you have worked, and you're also able to set the account field on the work log directly. So let's say, for example, you have you don't want to have that one-on-one relationship to your issue, because when we add the account field to the issue itself, you only have the option to add one account to an issue. But sometimes, of course, you might have different activities or different accounts related to work that you want to do that you have done on your issue, and you want to specify that on the work log directly. So you could also move that then to your work log dialog directly. So by default, it's of course getting getting the account field or the account value that is assigned to your issue, but you also want, for example, might to choose another one from here. And Tempo is looking into that, notice of that, and will report on the account that is always locked on the workload level, and if that's not specified in the workload level, it will look up the value on the issue level. So hope that makes sense and gives you another way on what you can do with Tempo accounts or how you can figure those. If you ever feel that you need to reach out to us, you're always very welcome. And what I would like to point out here is our Help Center. So from our Help Center, you have, of course, you can get a lot of information, and you have a direct link to the Help Center itself. And for example, if you want to open up a support ticket, for example, you go into here and you will see, for example, Tempo for Server. There's a lot of overview information, let's say so. But from here, you have the option to get support. So getting support is opening up our service desk panel, and from here you're able to submit a ticket against our support team, which is always willing to provide more detailed answers. And if you have any specific questions, you can always also refer to me, and I will try to get in touch with you personally.